I've been in contemplation with my guides around this energy of our conscience, and our conscience being quite different to our intuition. And I'm seeing this more and more as I'm doing readings, the effect of the conscience on our reality. And the difference between the two of these is that our conscience is something that has physical evidence in our reality. It's something that shows us right from wrong and steers us towards good. It's that thing that we know that we all have inside of us that helps us be kind toward ourselves and to other people. And while some of that is dependent and filtered through our conditioning and our programming, and even these different experiences that come through our culture, it's something that we have evidence for. And our intuition, as we know, it's guidance that comes through from our own bodily wisdom and our beautiful heart that we don't have logic for. There is no physical evidence or physical reason as to why that might make sense. So I'm looking at exploring the conscience more and more because I'm seeing the effects of not listening to the conscience and the effects of not listening to the intuition and how that shows up in our life. Now, addiction is something that I know our generation is something that I see a lot when I'm working with people. Sometimes we're just addicted to thought forms. Sometimes we have addictions that turn into things like, for me, it was like I smoked tobacco for years. We can have addictions to things like computer games or addictions to drugs and alcohol and other sort of things that kind of create a bypass of the emotional body, but raise our dopamine and give us these temporary feel-good feelings that are all sort of chemical. The reason, and there is no judgment in any of this, but I see addiction as a byproduct of more of not listening to the conscience than more of not listening to the intuition. And the struggle with addiction, and when we're working with this and we're course correcting and we want to start to listen to our intuition, which is often that guidance that takes us into a place that is more unknown or unfamiliar, we start to journey through this place where we've first got to confront our conscience. And I don't know that it's something that in my own dialogue I've even sort of brought a lot of awareness to. The reason I look at addiction is because that can be some of the more severe responses to, yes, a blocked intuition, but also obviously the effect of not listening to our conscience. Now, our conscience can happen, or not listening to our conscience, whilst that can happen on a really micro level and a macro level. It doesn't necessarily mean somebody is a bad person. And there are lots of excuses and reasons to justify why we would ignore our conscience in certain situations. So we see this around like secrecy. I see this as a reader where people come to me and they're cheating on their partner. Where there was just a random one-night stand, or where they're having an emotional affair with somebody at work. And it might not mean that they don't love their partner, or their intentions aren't to stay with that person long-term and have this lovely committed relationship. But what's happening is that there is this discomfort in the body, knowing that they are doing the wrong thing based on their own conscience, things that they value, commitments, vows, oaths that they have made. There's a response in the body that is so uncomfortable for us human beings that we would rather flee than be in the body and continue to ignore the conscience and its bodily wisdom. Are you still with me, honey? Do you understand kind of where I'm dancing with here? And so whilst it doesn't need to be as intense as a reaction or something as an affair, which is something that I do see very commonly, and it's not always something that someone is coming to see, to work with me with. I can just sort of see it in like the background of someone's image, and it might not even be what they're wanting to explore, right? So it's none of my business. It's just a piece of information, and there is no judgment, because as seers, we can always see the structures that create our reality, right? We can always see the cause, but I'm looking at the cause of ignoring the conscience because we do know better. Having a clear conscience allows for us to connect clearly with our intuition. And so this is what I've been exploring. Again, this can be like I've known drug dealers, really good people that are drug dealers, like some of the kindest people that don't even take drugs themselves, yet they're distributing something that they know is doing harm, right? And so when they go to bed at night and they shut their eyes, and even if that's not something they're putting in their own body, they're contributing to the problem. And we all know the difference between good and bad and right and wrong. So for some people, you might spontaneously feel your intuition speak to you. And it's going to be in an experience when you're really super present and you're really grounded in your body. The intuition speaks in the present moment. And it's when your awareness, your attention, and your light is deeply rooted in your system, right? All the way down to your base chakra and all the way up. And this lovely wisdom, again, doesn't need evidence from your physical environment. It takes a lot of trust to actually lean into that beautiful intuition and follow it through. And so the conscience is another little awareness piece. Hello, darling, and welcome. Your conscience is another beautiful awareness piece that if you are participating even on a tiny weeny little micro level where you're ignoring your conscience, it's going to have an effect on your intuition because your higher self is going, hold on a moment, you're not even listening to the stuff that has evidence in your physical reality. It's too much to go to a space where you're being asked to trust something that you can't see. And so this piece here and this curiosity around how this is manifesting with addiction, because it comes with more challenges and longer devotion to unpack those layers so we can get to the structures of those realities and actually start to make those changes right down at the root where you feel empowered enough, where you can back yourself enough to go through that discomfort where you're doing things differently. Because the addiction takes the spirit, the attention, and the awareness up and out of the body. So when we start to come back in, we have a lot of awareness as seekers, as people that are on a healing journey, that are on their spiritual journey. We have a lot of awareness around the discomfort when we come into the body looking for memories or past life bleed-throughs or soul fragments that are wanting to come through, or even abuse that you experienced, or situations that were harmful or challenging for you as a child or a teenager. There's this sort of going backwards in order to catch up with yourself in the present moment. And that work is crucial and it's necessary and it's a natural effect of coming back into your body. But sometimes it's as simple as taking some attention and some awareness and recorrecting this conscience piece. And I'm curious as to whether, I guess the byproduct, and I see this kind of manifesting in the end as addiction when it's got totally out of control and we're in this space where it's like, it's very challenging if you feel powerless enough or unable enough to get back in your body and stay there long enough that you can course correct these behaviors and come into a space of balance where you're no longer addicted to a certain pattern that is taking your power away or that is getting you up and out of your body, and instead looking at this as, hold on a moment, I already know right from wrong. I already know the difference between good and bad. I already can see where the waters of my conscience are clouded, and all I need to do is start to listen to even the evidence that's showing up in my physical reality and start to do things differently. Sometimes that's going to be an action or a decision to pivot and move in another way. Sometimes that's going to be about getting something off your chest and being honest about something, a behavior or something that you experience. And I see there's two secrets that are pushed down between couples where, it was just one night, it's never going to happen again. That stuff weighs on our conscience. And your experience will begin to be filtered through that. It becomes a density or an energy that is suppressed within your body. And so because you already know, without training, the difference between right and wrong and good and bad and a clear conscience and not a clear conscience, it's a beautiful vibrational standpoint to begin with if you're wanting to develop your intuition but you don't even know where to begin. Because you have these resources inside of you. I don't need to educate you. You don't need to be told how to listen to your conscience. And for some of you, it's not going to be a hugely big thing. It's just going to be more of a minor one. And that can be like making up excuses instead of just speaking the truth. I remember when I used to do that when I had like cafe jobs, and I'd go to like, right, I wanted a day off, right? It was just a day where like the energy was too bloody big and I had this big old story, and I'd go to write the message and be like, oh, I've woken up with a really bad headache, and make some story up, right? In order to back myself in my knowing that I just needed a day off. So I stopped telling stories, because I would make the excuse and send the message and it weighed on my conscience. I would feel guilty. I would feel bad. It would lower my vibration and cut me off from this beautiful wisdom that was actually supporting me that day. And so it says, I'm afraid. But I think addiction can be an accumulation of these long-term pushing down, this long-term ignoring of the conscience, the pushing down of secrets that get stuck in the body to the point where they start to calcify and stiffen. And I just think it's a really beautiful exploration. And I know I've just kind of talked about this subject in various different ways, but I'm just in contemplation of this. And when we get these beautiful little epiphanies, like Spirit has shared this with me, I can see it. There are visuals with this, and it's something that we can all apply to our lives today. And I think it's a stepping stone. It's like from going to the physical to the non-physical. If you want to be in communication with your intuition, the conscience is something that needs to be addressed. It's like addressing the information that's coming from your physical dimension before entering into that information that's coming from your non-physical. So I thought this was just such a beautiful exploration. It's also something that we can explore in reading spaces too, because I've read for like these people that I've shared with you, they're very common patterns, people having affairs, cheating on each other, even if they are like emotional affairs, people that have stolen things, people that have told lies, different experiences where people are sort of out of balance, selling drugs. They know better, but they've had to do it anyway, or they've chosen to do it anyway. And instead of living in this space where they're suffering the consequences, there is work sometimes to come into a space of forgiveness, or to have a look at the effect that this conscience is having on your reality, and whilst it makes it so uncomfortable to be in the body. And when we acknowledge the conscience as part of this beautiful space in which you want to be, and I am hearing you, I am listening, I understand the nature of this information, and I want to do better this time. The intuition can be the thing that comes in to support that transformation. It says, okay, come with me. Or you know exactly what it is that you have to do because the evidence is already there. Perhaps there's a phone call to have, a conversation to have. Perhaps it's just something that you choose not to engage in, and you start looking at other ways to make money or to do good. And I just thought it was such a beautiful exploration, especially with my passion for teaching, this connection to your intuition, which is a skill set everybody can learn. Our psychic abilities are a little different, but we want this intuition piece online, and we start to build up the column from there where it sort of starts to grow limbs. The intuition starts to grow limbs where it's hearing, it's seeing, it's feeling, it's knowing, and, it's able to reach higher states of information and guidance, and not just guidance from in our body, but also from spirits, right? Our spirit guides and other beautiful beings from these higher dimensional planes that have new information for us to explore. And this was lovely new information and an awareness for me today. And sometimes these patterns come in reading sessions, and I'm going to start to bring some attention to this. So if this is something you want help with, especially because some of these topics are a little bit more taboo, sometimes they can come with a lot of shame. I just want you to know that you're welcome to bring that to me. I want you to know that I don't see these things that you knew better about meaning that it makes you a bad person. It's just about steering back toward goodness. And sometimes that is forgiveness. Sometimes it's the transference of behaviors. Sometimes we're just doing things a little differently. But it's something that we can explore in reading sessions, and something that we can begin to make a change of. And the byproduct of that is, when we're listening to the conscience, is that we give ourselves permission to start to listen to the intuition a little more readily. So I hope that helped you today, even just as a little pocket of awareness. I find it fascinating and interesting, and it's not something that the body forgets. This can go back way, way back, and sometimes there are invitations to make peace, and that will make your body a nicer place to be in, and it starts to soften the blow of the intensity of the call to these addictive behaviors that again get us up and out of the system, or is almost what I see as like a byproduct of this continuation of not listening to what you know is more in alignment with right, with good, with being in the light, which I believe on a human nature level, we all want deep down. No child grows up wanting to do harm. I just kind of feel like it's a nice way to reconnect back with our purity and understand this from a different lens. So thanks for joining me today. Just a short little live and a nice way to have a conversation and discussion. I'd love to hear from you what this brings up for you, and whether this is on a micro or a macro level, it's worth addressing, as I really do believe that it can help strengthen that connection to your intuition if we can listen to this guidance that comes from the conscience too. Okay, lots of love to you.